Hey, welcome. Today, we are diving deep into the digital dangers that are, lurking just a click away. We're talking about malware, and this is going to be your essential guide to understanding the threats that really define so much of our online lives.
Oh, you know the feeling, right? You open your laptop and suddenly tabs are just opening by themselves, the fan is spinning like it's about to take off, and your mouse seems to have a mind of its own. If that sounds even remotely familiar, well, you might have accidentally invited a little digital gremlin to live rent-free on your computer.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to unpack what malware actually is. Then, we'll introduce you to the most wanted in our little rogues gallery. After that, we'll get into the high-stakes world of modern cyber threats, arm you with a digital toolkit, and finally, take a peek at what the future might hold. So first things first, what exactly is this thing that causes so much digital chaos? Let's pull back the curtain on this mystery. Okay, so the name malware is actually short for malicious software, and really it's the big boss, the catch-all term for any software that's designed to harm, to steal, or just to generally mess with your computer. So yeah, think of it as the evil twin of normal software. Every virus, worm, or ransomware attack you've ever heard about, it all falls under this one big malicious umbrella. Now let's meet the cast of characters. Think of this as a digital crime story, and these are the most wanted culprits on the block.
First up, the classic computer virus. It's basically a digital hitchhiker. It latches onto a clean file, could be a document, a program, anything, and it just waits. It can't do a single thing until you, the user, actually run that infected file. But the moment you do, it activates and starts spreading to other files. The key thing to remember is it needs you to give it a ride.
Next, we have the worm, and the big difference here is its autonomy. Unlike a virus, a worm doesn't need a host file or a human to click anything. Nope, it's a standalone program that actively spreads itself across entire networks, usually by exploiting security holes. Once it gets into one system, it can infect hundreds, even thousands more in seconds. It's like digital glitter. Once it's out, it gets absolutely everywhere.
So to boil it down, a virus needs to attach itself to something else, and it needs you to run it. A worm, on the other hand, is completely self-sufficient. It's its own program, and it just replicates and spreads all by itself. And that independence, well, that's what makes worms so incredibly fast and so dangerous.
Just like in the famous Greek myth, a Trojan horse is all about deception. It disguises itself as something you actually want, a free game, a cool utility, you name it. You willingly download and install it, thinking you're getting one thing, but hidden inside is some nasty code that opens a secret backdoor, giving attackers a wide-open invitation into your system.
And then there's ransomware, which is pretty much the stuff of nightmares. This malware is a digital kidnapper. It gets into your system, encrypts all your important files, we're talking photos, documents, everything, and then boom, a ransom note pops up on your screen demanding payment, usually in crypto, if you ever want to see your files again.
Now, not all malware is loud and destructive. Some types are more like silent assassins. Spyware, for instance, just sits in the background and watches everything you do online. And then there are cryptojackers, which are even sneakier. They don't steal your data, they steal your computer's power, secretly turning it into a little zombie miner for cryptocurrency. So if your machine is suddenly super slow and the fan is always on full blast, it might just have a secret side hustle you don't know about.
So we've met the players, but what does the game actually look like today? Well, this isn't about high school pranks anymore. It's a massive, high-stakes industry.
Just to get a sense of the scale here, look at this number. Almost $460 million. And get this, that's not the total for the year. That's just the amount paid to ransomware gangs by the middle of 2024. We are talking about a criminal industry that's worth hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars a year. It's huge. So, when we look at the modern threat, experts are pointing to 4 major trends. First, these criminal groups are incredibly resilient. You shut one down, they just rebrand and pop back up somewhere else. Second, attackers are targeting all those cloud services we use, what the industry calls SaaS, or software as a service. The average company uses hundreds of these apps, and each one is a potential door in. Third, we're seeing state-sponsored actors targeting critical infrastructure, getting a foothold for potential future conflicts. And finally, the malware itself is just getting smarter, better and better at hiding from our defenses. Okay, I know that all sounds pretty grim, but knowledge is power, right? So let's shift from the problems to the solutions.
Here's a practical toolkit based on expert guidance for how you can actually protect yourself.
Let's start with what we'll call basic system hygiene. First, keep everything patched. You know those software updates you're always ignoring? They often contain critical security fixes, so install them. Second, use and update your antivirus software. Third, lock down your system so only authorized applications can run. And finally, use tools that block access to known malicious websites before you even have a chance to click on them.
You know, your own habits are probably your best line of defense. Be skeptical of suspicious links and attachments. Don't just click on everything. Use a standard user account for your daily work, not an admin account. This seriously limits the damage malware can do. Always enable multi-factor authentication wherever you can, and try to keep your work and personal digital lives separate to prevent threats from crossing over.
Prevention is absolutely key, but you also need a plan for the worst-case scenario. This starts with having a recovery plan before you ever need one. It's crucial to back up your data regularly, keep those backups isolated from your main network, and, now this is the part everyone forgets, you have to actually test them to make sure you can restore your files when it really counts.
And here's a pretty stark reminder of why that backup plan is so critical. You have to remember, there is no honor among thieves. Paying the ransom is a huge gamble. You might pay and get absolutely nothing back. Or maybe you get your files back but find out they've also been copied and sold online. The only guaranteed way to recover is from your own clean backups.
So what's next? Because the threat landscape never, ever stands still. Let's take a look at what the experts predict is just over the horizon.
So what does the near future hold? Well, experts are watching 3 key areas very closely. First, AI impersonation. Think about phishing emails or fake voice calls that are literally indistinguishable from the real thing. Second, more attacks on critical infrastructure. You know, the power grids and water supplies we all rely on. And third, a shift in focus. For years, Macs were seen as safer, but as they become more common in the business world, you bet the criminals are taking notice and building malware just for them and for our phones.
And here's a peek at how malware is getting smarter. This is something called polymorphic malware, and it's basically a digital shapeshifter. Every single time it spreads, it changes its own code. This is a massive problem for traditional antivirus software, which looks for a specific digital fingerprint. With this stuff, that fingerprint is constantly changing, making it incredibly difficult to catch.
And that really brings us to our final thought. This game of cat and mouse just continues. As attackers leverage powerful new tools like AI to create more sophisticated and evasive threats, our defenses just can't rely on the old methods. They also have to get smarter, more adaptive, and more focused on behavior rather than just signatures. The question really isn't if the next big threat is coming, but how we'll be prepared to meet it.